If you were going to tell the story of your life at La Jolla United Methodist Church, without telling the story, what would the title of that story be?
So I've had a chance to think about this now.
Yes.
Yeah, and heard the wonderful answers from others, but I think I would call it my come to Jesus moment.
Oh.
I know, not very Methodist, but I think the reason I would say that is, I grew up in the church. My dad was a Methodist minister, and so I sort of took it for granted, my faith. And I grew up talking about my faith in kind of muted tones, right? We didn't talk about Jesus a lot, and we didn't really talk about salvation. And I think that's because that idea that comes with proselytizing and, some of the things that were less familiar or welcome to me. But the older I get, and then more recently, I would say the pandemic and this church and experiences in my life have made me realize that my faith it's more real than some of the words that I've been using in the past, and that it's had a real impact on my life. And I feel like those pieces of my life are kind of coming together in a different way now. Just, went online, looked for Methodist Church, tried one of the really big ones, thought it was beautiful, but I felt more at home here. I liked the way people welcomed me here and felt at home. To know that I have a church family that, like Deborah Butera was saying the other day, that we pray for each other, that we care about each other, that means a lot to me. The idea that every Sunday we come together for some time where we think about God and we think about what makes our life important and special and meaningful and how we can help each other. And that's, to have that space in my life is very meaningful, and to be surrounded by others who want to think that way too. I'm a development officer. That's what I do for a living. I ask people to be generous to the university. And I was thinking about, giving to the church is a place where 100% of what you're giving is doing God's work in the world, right? I mean, what is more important than that? Like most of us, we develop a habit for giving. That's how people become generous. You start somewhere and you practice and you become more and more generous. And so as a kid, I always put money in the offering plate. But as I've gotten older and more intentional about my pledge every year, I've realized, wow, if I'm giving to Habitat and to my alma mater and to other places that I care about, how much more important is this work? Tithing is out there, and I share Karen Moore's, I think what she said was she's working in that direction, she's getting there. And I love the way we set out a plan for you can step by step, right? So that's one of the things I'm aiming at when I make the decision. So I give back because I've been blessed, hugely blessed in my life. And I give here, like I was saying earlier, this is where God's work gets done, right? And so I really want to invest in this work. I think as a member of the congregation, as we thought about this stewardship campaign, we set a goal. One of the goals was for the dollars, and one of the goals was for the number of individuals and families who would give. And I think that is probably the most important goal of all, because my giving is a part of my spiritual practice, and I think it has helped me feel closer to God and closer to God's work, or my part in God's work. And I think that's probably true of everyone, and I want to share that, I think what Sal said the other day about that there are so many ways to be involved here and to help if you're just brave enough to stick your hand out and say, I'll try, And I think giving is one of those ways. I mentioned earlier that my faith was something that I took for granted, and I think I also took it for granted that everyone knows the love of God and that unconditional acceptance. And I realize that's not true, that there are people who are just yearning to be loved and accepted, right? And I think that's what this church is, and I think we could be so much more of that. I think there are a lot of people out there who need that kind of community.